All right. Good evening, everybody. We call to order the Finance and Facilities Subcommittee for this evening, Wednesday, June 4th. We will begin with the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everybody. Do we have a motion on last month's meeting minutes?
Yeah, make a motion to approve.
I wasn't present for that meeting.
Okay, you can
I copy
abstain.
that.
You just abstain.
I will second them. Any discussion? No? All those in favor?
I abstained.
So 2 yes and 1 abstention for Micah as he wasn't here. Thank you. Next, new business. Matt, I'll turn it over to you.
Yep, standard financial remarks, inflation down a tick to 3.1% as of the end of April. I linked in the encumbrances or open POs that were entered through April 29th. The operating cash balance of the district as of April 30th was $8,621,537.68. That's held between the TD Bank account and the New Hampshire PDIP. In terms of our trust fund balances and facility use revolving fund, the special education expendable trust is up to $376,108.69. The capital improvement and maintenance capital reserve is up to $471,016.55. The unanticipated educational expenses capital reserve is up to $282,913.22. The unanticipated utility cost expendable trust is up to $191,737.07. And the facility use revolving fund, if we factor in the middle school, high school hot water storage tank relining, it's actually at $172,632.96. Later in the presentation, when we talk about end of year surplus, the end of year balance for that account will be about $210,000, but we'll talk about that in a moment.
The facilities use?
Yes, okay. By June 30th, it'll be about $210,000.
To include the expenditure of the water storage tank.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions on those guys?
No.
So we have a couple of budget adjustments. There's smaller ones this month. They're both special ed related. There's a budget adjustment to eliminate a deficit in a Bakey special education out of state tuition line, which we're looking to move $15,368.69 to that line. We're going to move it from a Bakey special ed transportation line that would total $7,684.34. And then we're also going to move the remainder, $7,684.35 from a Memorial special ed student transportation line.
Make a motion to approve funds as described by Matt.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous? Thank you.
And then the second budget adjustment is to cover salary for a contracted licensed special education administrator. This is contracted administrator cover Dr. Kennett's position, which to cover that, we're looking to move $19,836.49 to that line. And it's coming from 4 special education transportation lines for students who are homeless. Some years we use these monies, some years we don't. This is one of the years we didn't. So to take care of that deficit, we'd like to move $5,000 from the Bakey student transportation line for homeless students, $4,383.75 from the Memorial line, $4,383.74 from the middle school line, and then $6,069 from the high school special ed line for transporting homeless students.
I'll make a motion to approve as described.
Second.
Further discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you, Matt.
Moving right along, end of year budget balance and summer projects. So I linked in just a little summary that also has a link to a spreadsheet that lists some summer projects, which I'll explain in a minute. I think the summary is valuable as much for the community as it is for you guys. But I'll just read it just so people at home, if they're listening, actually, some people do listen. I have had some, I could name names, but someone told me he actually enjoys these meetings, so
Yeah.
people do listen to these meetings. So,
I think it's your voice, to be honest.
wow,
Yeah.
wow, thank you.
The voice of radio.
Yeah.
Up late at night,
The-
can't sleep.
Current end of year budget balance that we're forecasting is approximately 1.9 million, which is higher than we were expecting all spring. Mostly because we're expecting that we're gonna have to encumber funds potentially for lawsuits related to the Bakey investigation. However, our attorney informed us just a few weeks back that he did not recommend us doing so. That Primex would more than likely cover the settlement for any lawsuits. So that being said, because at least half of that was I had originally planned on encumbering, is now available. Just for historic perspective, at this time last year, the business office was anticipating a budget balance or surplus of about 1.5 million. It's actually $1,572,093. And with that estimate, the school board approved spending $238,670 for a variety of tech expenditures that we needed. Last year, the tech department, for reasons that some of us know, some of us don't, didn't have sufficient funds to purchase new equipment. This year they do. So, but that, again, that was authorized last year. So while we were expecting an end of year surplus of about 1.3 million last year, ended up coming close to 1.5. We had about an additional 150,000 of expenditures to return to the taxpayers. That's why we ended up with a budget surplus last year of $1,486,420. So we're in a similar spot. We have a little bit more money this year. And my discussion is we don't have to purchase tech items this year. Our tech department has sufficient funding to purchase laptops and whatever their needs are, Chromebooks and whatnot. So should we use some of the end of year surplus on facility needs? Those are things in our district CIP that we approved this winter. And I put together a spreadsheet that includes some of those items. Slide buzzing around. That was a B at first. As well as some other items that both Dr. Dawson as well as Dan Doyle, our facility director, I've identified. But just kind of want to open this up for discussion. Anything on the CIP that would clearly be covered by the Siemens audit, we did not include on the spreadsheet.
I'll start the discussion first, if you don't mind.
Nope.
So the summary says the balance is approximately 1.9 million, correct?
Yes.
Does that include the 500,000 payout for the former superintendent?
Yes.
So it's 1.9 so that's paying him out.
Right. If that wasn't there, it'd be 2.4.
Beautiful.
Okay, so this is after.
This is after.
So even with the decision that the board made to settle with the former superintendent at 500,000, we still have 1.9 million left over to return to taxpayers.
Correct. Yes.
It's good to know.
It's very good to know.
So absolutely. So the spreadsheet that I put together, at the top in yellow, you've got the projected end of year surplus. You also have the facility use revolving fund, which, as I mentioned earlier, that's what it would be on June 30th, because it's all end of year. Last year, we ended up paying for a lot of, we paid for additional tech needs with that fund, as well as ESSER money, and there was a fourth fund ESSER doesn't exist anymore, and whatever the fourth funding source was doesn't exist either. I just put it there just for, you know, to be completely transparent.
So if we're looking at the total, the 1,605,000,
Yeah.
that is what would be left if we chose to do everything in lines 4 through 12?
Yes, now as of yesterday afternoon, first of all,
Well, that wouldn't be left, right? That would be,
that would be returned to the
I think it would be.
taxpayer.
that is, okay.
At first, I
So-
was like, those don't add up to that.
Yeah, so that's, okay,
Yep.
yeah. That's not the total of the above projects.
Correct,
Total.
that's what's left.
Okay.
So you can plug and play too. So the reason why, and the other thing is, yesterday afternoon, Siemens got us their quotes for the fire alarm system, which I dumped down below. The 150,000 for the Bakey fire alarm system is from Minuteman, which that quote was linked in as well.
Okay.
So there's a reason why Siemens comes a little bit higher. We may want to have Ava and Colleen come in a minute to discuss that. Dan, we don't have, other than Siemens quote, we don't have a quote yet for Memorial's fire system upgrade, right?
No, I didn't obtain one because I didn't think the scale of that project was so grand that we would need to go out and get extra bids on it since Siemens was kind of taking it over. But I can have Minuteman come in and look at that system, and see what they come in as far as a bid goes.
Yeah, I'd like to know what the difference is in what they're offering, because that's a substantial variance.
Well, I think I just want to be clear, anything over a certain amount requires bids.
Yeah.
We really have to.
Yeah.
Well, if it's not Siemens related though, right?
Not that I'm-
So you're saying if Siemens residing a building, they have to get 3 bids?
Well, I don't know that we approve Siemens to do anything.
Well, I'm just saying, for example. you know,
Yeah,
if
I
Siemens
mean-
doing a
Yeah, well,
project-
we're gonna get bids for some of these things. It depends what it is. Yeah.
Right,
Yeah, like,
but are we relying on Siemens to get 3 bids from 3 different contractors for, let's say, new boilers at one of the schools?
if we
That's a
approve
conversation for another
Siemens,
day, yeah.
if we approve Siemens for specific work, right? Then I think that it would be fully vetted, but I don't think that's what we're talking about here. What I believe I'm being presented right here is I'm being asked to review a list of things that I've never even seen before. Greenhouse roof, you know, other things that I don't even know if they even trump anything that's on our CIP plan.
Yep.
You know, and then I'm being asked to discuss a fire alarm system quote where we have one where it's $65,000, and if I'm being asked, then yes, we're getting 3 quotes before we spend taxpayer money above, you know, what we said. we
What
would.
was it, 20? Is that what we said?
They have to look
I can bring up
backwards
some
somewhere.
options, but this falls over it.
Yeah,
15 or 20.
yeah.
15 or
So again,
Siemens being one of the bids though.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
100%. And if we approve Siemens, like if we have a scope of work and we say Siemens is, when we approve that Siemens is doing that work, we've approved that money. So I expect them to live by their quote. If they get other quotes to, you know, to substantiate that number that we approved, I don't care about that. You know, I'm not saying, we approve Siemens to do something.
Yeah.
Then I'm not gonna ask them for 3 quotes to justify what we.
Right.
Yeah.
and
Get an infinite regress problem.
right, and
Guy needs to be close. That guy needs to be.
and we're not necessarily looking for approval on these tonight, because Dr. Johnson's gonna bring something up in a bit, but the Siemens and the fire alarm system is relevant because at their May presentation, 2 of the 4 items they presented for phase 1 were directly energy related, LED lighting, building envelope, but then the suspended ceiling at Memorial and the fire alarm systems that they also included, obviously not part of the energy audit, but they were included in
Yeah, I thought some of the suspended ceilings were part of the energy.
Yeah.
Because they
Yes.
recommended dropping, right?
Yeah, it was minimal, but they also, because remember it was, we mentioned with a la carte.
Yeah.
So like in there, when we get to the Siemens tonight, the 4th item is fire alarm system for Bacon Memorial,
Mhm.
which we can cut out
Yeah.
out of this project, you know, reduce, you know, what we're looking at,
Financing or whatever.
financing with Siemens for the energy audit for phase 1.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, there's no energy savings on a fire alarm system, and to spend that much additional money on a system that, it's not an energy saving project. So
Right.
rolling it into their larger project is not a cost savings to the district
Correct.
that we know of, unless we're presented with
No.
something we don't know.
No, it's just the
No.
ability to finance it through them. is all it
Right.
is.
Yeah.
Yep.
And at the time that Dan didn't know, back when Dan was getting some quotes and we were talking, and he was talking to Siemens about our needs, which is our holistic facility needs. He hadn't been included in the fact that we might be looking at end of year surplus for this. So just now it's all kind of come to light with some of these recent decisions, not to encumber money for lawsuits. So,
In my recollection from conversations that we are both, not compliant, with the current fire systems.
No, that's not true. We are compliant. It's just we need to update it. And when we update it, you have to make everything within current code.
I apologize.
Yeah.
We're compliant because we're grandfathered in.
Correct.
Okay, so.
Yeah.
In my mind, we're not really compliant, right? Because we've been told, I thought the fire inspector said that you have to update the panels and stuff. Am I misremembering something?
Everything is compliant from a legal standpoint, okay, because we're grandfathered in.
Correct.
The issue is that the fire inspector and the age of the appliances
Correct.
need to be changed soon.
Yes.
Because there's a shelf life for those appliances. So just simply by the fact that we have to change all the smoke detectors.
Yeah.
Now we have to bring that system up to current code.
Correct.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I
Yep.
think my point is, I think they're both overdue, right? I think we've been.
Yeah.
Sort of talking about.
one school more, baking more
Yeah.
so than
Correct.
because
Memorial.
Dan, Memorial has a new fire panel, is that what it was?
They do have a new fire panel there. It's not addressable. In other words, if something goes off in one end of the building, it's not gonna tell you at the panel.
Until everything's aligned with the panel.
You got it.
Yeah.
So there's some upgrading to the panel
Right.
and some upgrading to some of the appliances with the fire system at Memorial, but not as extensive as baking.
So, Mike and Jeremiah, I think, just from where I come out, that is a protective, service / utility for, the infrastructure of the district, right? So I think it's a priority.
Yeah, I think we're getting a bit ahead of ourselves here, though. And that is, we have a CIP. We've reviewed it. Well, we've done a pretty good job reviewing it until things went a little haywire this past couple months. But, and now we're at end of year funds, and then we kind of go to a wish list instead of our CIP. So I'd like us to stay
These all
with,
came out the CIP.
okay.
Well, except
I
for a
think
couple
that's,
things.
I think that's how I'd like to
Except
view
for
them then. I'd like to view
baseball
them
field,
in
yeah.
the CIP.
Yes.
Yeah, I think,
Yep.
to be clear, the fire alarm systems are on the CIP.
They are.
Are these, so these are all,
Greenhouse, roof,
The stars.
athletic
Yeah.
stuff is not. in
Those
the
are,
CIP.
Yeah.
these are CIP.
okay,
So yeah, there's some stuff that's not, right? And so I think
but are
our,
they level A on the CIP?
Some of them are, well, actually,
Because we graded
greenhouse,
stuff, right?
greenhouse
We did.
roof is on the CIP, right?
so I'd rather not
Should be in the high school.
I'd rather not jump around. We're gonna
Yeah.
waste a ton of time with
Yeah.
this. So I'd rather view this document in alignment with the CIP when we talk about the CIP. Because then we can look through and we can say, hey, these were our As.
Yep.
And some of these aren't even on the CIP. And if they are, they're Ds or Cs, right? We have a lot of things on that CIP, and that's not to say that these things aren't important and maybe they can be included. But I don't want to view this in a vacuum outside of the CIP.
Mhm. Should we go to the CIP now?
I have it up if you want,
Yeah,
if you want to go through, I mean, I can.
We got a
Yeah.
quick,
Is that linked there
It's
to it?
linked,
Yeah.
yeah.
where is it?
It's on the
Uh,
main agenda, I believe.
oh,
Oh, I got it, yeah.
on the main agenda.
There is one thing when we get there that I want to discuss that isn't on the CIP or this list. It's small, but I think important.
Let me get there here.
Do you want to tackle the As first or go by school? Because the walk-in freezer is on that list and we have it as an A on there for Memorial.
Yeah, I think,
Actually, I did link it into the discussion too, that,
I would think we go by
just
age.
my summary, it's at the
Yeah.
bottom there too.
Oh, right there. Okay, so I have
Yeah, I
that
have two
up.
spots.
There it is, right there. Yep. Okay.
So Mike, how do you want to go through it? I'm sorry, Jeremiah, how do you want to go through it?
Yeah, let's do, let's look at it by school
Okay.
and only As. So As by school.
So the A's that we had for DJ Bakey were loading dock and paving, the septic vent pipes, and playground structures.
Yeah.
Fire suppression alarm upgrades were a C, which is evaluate the next 2 to 3 years. I think we did this last year, to be fair.
Okay.
Do we need to change the priority on that one?
Yeah,
Dan's here, so
Yep.
I would guess I would want Dan's input, because we sort of went with Dan's input when we sort of did these A's.
and are we talking about fire suppression or just in
I
general?
think, why don't we why don't we talk about the A's that are on the list as of right now?
Make
Yes,
sure when you say it though, we're not dealing with fire suppression, that's sprinklers. We're dealing with fire alarms, they're
Yeah,
two
so
different things, so make sure we're clear on
What
that.
this says is fire suppression and alarm
yeah,
upgrades.
the
Right.
CIP says.
No
So-
fire suppression.
What I would do is put a letter to suppression and a letter to alarm.
Okay.
Just,
Or we would break these apart?
yeah.
Okay, that's not how it is in there now, but we can do
Right,
that.
but I think that would be the right thing to do.
Okay,
I'm doing it.
So can we go, Mike, do you mind? Can we go to the A's that we have, the items we have listed as A's now?
let's do it.
Okay. So the first A we have is that loading dock and paving. Replace loading dock railing and stairs and repave pavement around the loading dock and adjacent parking lot area.
Is that still an A?
The paving's gonna be done this summer. You approved it at the last meeting.
Okay.
Okay,
What about the loading dock railing?
The
and
loading
stairs?
dock, I have done nothing to it until we're actually have the money to do something like that. So I can start getting bids on that right now.
Is it a safety hazard?
is it an A?
Absolutely, the railings were falling off. Yes, it's
Yeah,
an A.
okay.
So did we have
Yeah,
any
can you
kind of
share the
estimates
CIP?
for that?
I got one about 2 years
I
ago
can't see it.
from Mike Bavaro
Okay,
and
I'll send it to you.
Newton,
Oh.
and I
I have
don't
it, I just
recall
can't
what
see
the
it.
number was. But it was pretty hefty, so I want to get multiple bids on
Yeah,
this one
let's
for
get,
sure.
I think what,
Now, there's a couple ways we can skin this loading dock, and I'm not gonna drag this out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tear out, put concrete back in,
Fire
like,
refreshing.
or tear it out and put in corrugated metal, which would be the best thing, galvanized metal. It's safer, it's less maintenance, it doesn't build ice on it. And that's an option too, and I can price it out both ways to see what it would cost for corrugated galvanized metal and concrete, because concrete doesn't hold up well in the Northeast, you know that, so.
I mean, it's split distance for the paving.
okay,
There's two ways we can skin that, and I'd love to
Okay.
explore the corrugated metal option.
the next, the next day was the septic vent pipes.
That is an undertaking because we would have to literally tear down block walls to put this plumbing into these walls. So every classroom has a bathroom, which means we'd have to tear down a section of block wall. In every bathroom, change all that cast to PVC, and would go from the first floor all the way up to the second floor and up through the roof. So that is a huge project. That would be something we would have to bring a general contractor in. It's not just going out and talking with plumbers, we have to bring a general contractor in because it involves cutting concrete, block work, plumbing.
So is it an A, Dan? Sorry. Because we have it listed, so we're checking, this is
Okay.
the project, we
Okay.
have it listed as an A, is it still an A?
In my opinion, it is an A simply because we're releasing sewer gases within the building.
Okay,
It says the cast iron septic pipes have split open.
Yes,
All of them?
from
Which-
what we can see, there's a lot of them that are buried in walls, so we don't know.
Okay, well, ones we can see are,
The ones we have seen have split.
but they're, like, that's a concerning statement that you just made. So, so they're in the wall,
Yes, they're dry pipes, they don't take liquid.
right? They're dry
Just like
pipes,
that, yeah.
they're in a wall,
vent pipes.
and they are in the hollowed space in between walls
Correct.
that are releasing or potentially releasing gases into the wall spaces, which then travel up and who knows from there, or,
Exactly, because that's the purpose of the vent pipe is to release
Right.
gas into the
They most
atmosphere.
likely
Yeah.
go into the open air plenum, is what they call it, right? So you have
Yep.
drop ceilings
Yep.
and you have,
Yep.
where your cables and stuff are, that's
Right.
typically what it is.
Yeah, in theory, you could have gas pockets all over that school,
right,
so.
okay. So then, yeah, we should have that
And which gas are we
looked
talking?
at.
Just to be clear.
Well, yeah, I mean,
You're,
We're not talking
Methane?
Methane from your,
We're not talking
Bottom
carbon
functions.
monoxide.
Yeah.
No.
Okay, just so
It's
we're
methane,
clear.
right?
I
Yeah,
would assume it'd be.
Well,
majority would be
people may not know
methane
that.
and
Yeah.
ammonic acid.
sure.
This is a silly question, but how harmful is that?
Well, it's volatile.
I mean, do we need to be getting
It's
air
volatile,
quality
well, in the
testing?
sen- in the-
And we've had
in the
air
sense
quality
of-
testing done, and the air quality there is fine,
Okay,
okay?
all right.
So if I lit a match
So-
in one of those spaces, for example,
I don't think that would be an issue, but these walls are enclosed, so I don't know
Yeah.
where it's going up through the wall and into
Okay.
the ceilings or roofs. So
Okay.
the classroom and the air quality is fine.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
So what I'm hearing is, this was summarized, right, so we're clear. We're aware of some splits inside the walls that go into an open air plenum that is sealed off the school. We have had air quality testing done, and it has come back, that is within standards. right?
Correct.
So this is an A now. My next question is, given the gravity of this project, is it feasible for this project to get done between the close of school now, and that means we have to get bids and contractors to look at it, and the opening of school in September?
I would say no, simply because we would have to find a general contractor to do that, have an engineer come in also, so.
So we can begin to get bids and stuff like that and plan this for a next end of year unless there.
I can start looking for a general contractor.
So is it fair to put this as like an A- or a B, considering we're going to engage in it now with the thought that we're going to do it at the close of school next year unless we need to move it up for some reason?
I think we should leave it as an A and follow that course of action.
Okay.
yeah, we could have a different color or something for
Yeah.
A that's being currently.
Oh, yeah.
actioned
Progressing.
on. Yeah, it's progressing.
I'll start looking for a GC then for Bakey.
Okay,
Can't reline it?
so Micah, is there a way here,
Some kind of
comments?
spray paint, you could just.
Well, there's some, like, I've seen,
Micah,
We-
do
videos on my phone.
We already
Blow
did
it
the pipes in the floor at Bakey already. Problem is that
you want to add a
as
comment
the pipes deteriorate
after,
inside,
in the
metal
comments
falls to the
column
pipe and creates a
afterwards,
rusted slug.
and just say,
And you
you know,
can't get through it.
Dan,
And that's why we-
Maybe,
uh,
how about this?
getting quotes or whatever, you know what I mean?
It seemed obvious.
Yeah.
I figured it out, somebody else did it.
That way we're not like, we have to take separate notes and then
How about
compare it.
Right on the A. Right, like if you click on the priority level.
Got it,
thing,
Dan
that's
getting
the status.
quotes.
Or we
Yep.
could add a column that says
Yep.
status, current status,
Yeah,
Why don't we do that?
I like that better.
I'm gonna add a
I
column,
like that better.
insert.
The
column.
quote, the comments will get
Yeah, it's gonna get dicey.
nasty.
Yeah.
Okay, next one.
The next day was playground structures.
Okay,
Yeah, That's,
is that still an A?
that's a complicated one though, based
Yeah,
on.
we
what
do
wanna
have
do.
some equipment on some of the playgrounds that need to be replaced or removed. Now, we could take the cheap way out and just replace them and not replace them with anything, just for the simple fact we're removing the safety hazard. For instance, at Bakey, they have a spiral slide. It's all delaminating, there's sharp edges on the delamination, it's rusting.
Yes.
I tried to find replacement parts for those pieces of equipment, but they're so old that they don't even manufacture those pieces of equipment anymore. So we could either remove it or buy something new and put it in its place.
It's the only slide on the playground, correct?
That is the only slide at Bakey, correct?
Yeah, was there an issue with replacement with ADA or something, or added costs that we didn't have to incur in the past?
So one of the things, the state, as of January 1st of this year, said that if you do any remodeling on playgrounds, that they now have to meet ADA requirements, which means you have to put a rubber floor on so a wheelchair can access it. But a kid in a wheelchair is not going to access a slide anyways. So there may be some type of waiver that we can get for that piece of equipment. So if we do something like that, as far as replacing new equipment, we would have to comply with ADA standards as far as access for handicapped kids.
Okay.
So it's just not buying a slide, it's also making sure we're ADA compliant around those structures also.
Okay.
So, playground equipment, as you guys know, is terribly
It's
expensive,
very expensive.
very expensive.
Yep.
So if it's something you want to do, I can start contacting some companies as far as price on replacing like structures.
Yeah,
Or we can just say, let's just remove the hazard altogether and not have a slide at Bakey. Or one of the ones at Memorial, same thing, the whole, I don't know what you want to call it, like a jungle gym setup
Yep.
is also, they have 3 down at Memorial. They have 2 at Memorial. One of them is for very small children. It's not age appropriate for our students,
Mhm.
but there's no reason to not keep it there for kids that are in the neighborhood to use, you know? And then the bigger one that's age appropriate for those kids is starting to really show its age and starting to delaminate and things like that. So that is a huge investment there, and that big one down at Memorial, if you're familiar with it, that
Yeah.
big jungle system there.
Those are massive. Those are like $150,000 playground pieces.
Absolutely,
They're not cheap.
they're not cheap.
And the small one's probably 85 to 100K. So I mean, we're talking $250,000. Yeah, I know.
Oh, yeah.
It's ridiculous.
absolutely
We just did one at my
ridiculous,
last
the price
school
of
and it
these.
was $200,000 for a nice size.
You rent a bouncy house.
I know.
Cage jungle gym thing.
So.
Okay, so for the sake of time, if I can pause us really quick,
Yes.
because we have a couple items on this agenda that we have got to get to.
Yep.
All right, so I think what we just did, guys, is we completed the A's for Bakey. So that will be our completion for the CIP for right now. So we're done with Bakey, and let's finish those couple of items on the agenda, and then we can come back to continue on with Memorial, et cetera, if we have time. Are you guys okay with that?
Yeah.
And thank you, Dan, for being flexible here and answering those questions for us.
No worries.
Do you want to take it back to, so old business, we talked about facilities use, and that,
Facilities use can be quick.
Yep.
The last
Yep.
meeting, remember, and I own this one
Yep.
as part of my onboarding last
That's
year.
right.
I didn't realize some of the forms we had. Dan and Tina have been using them, but I didn't realize that things were as tight as they were. It's just that prior administration may have let some things go, like
Yep.
waivers and stuff. What I would like to do is I would like to follow the policy to the letter of the law. So, so if an outside group damages our facilities, we send them a bill. We just replaced $1,200 worth of windows at Swayze that
Yeah.
our kids didn't damage it.
Yep.
Other groups did. But, I want to make that clear that if you misuse our facilities, then you at least need to pay for it.
are we having
or-
them sign that? Are we reviewing that and having them sign
Well, I think
those agreements?
the form says it.
It's signed in the contract.
It's the
I'm looking
fine,
at policy KF.
fine, I think there's a separate, attachment.
Yeah, the link doesn't work, but
Yeah, it says in the first sentence here, it is understood that this permit is not transferable. The holder is responsible for the maintenance
Yep.
of order and any damages to the building or equipment.
my question is, are we having them sign this?
Yeah,
Yeah.
they
Okay.
all have to sign this. So
Perfect.
they sign that
Yeah,
contract.
perfect. Yeah, I read that because I pulled it up and I was
Yeah.
like, we have one. Why are we redoing this?
You're right, yep.
Uh,
And the other one,
Recently signed it? Everybody's recently signed that?
Anybody that uses our facility
Yeah, they-
has to sign. this.
Not everybody, because we talked last week about the driver's ed.
well, the issue with driver's ed is the for-profit company that's
Yeah.
not being charged.
Right,
But they still have to fill this out though to use our facility.
Okay.
okay,
But
okay.
my point is we need to follow the policy, rather than playing favorites with some groups and not others. I think
Yes.
we need to
Yeah.
follow it. If
Yeah.
it's a for-profit organization, they need to pay whatever the appropriate fee is. If it's a
Right.
classroom, cafeteria.
Whatever our fee
Custodial.
schedule is.
And Dan pulled data from other surrounding districts, I think Timberlane, Wyndham, and
Okay.
our fee structure is right in line with everybody else's.
Right, and so whatever they're utilizing currently is what we should be charging them for.
Should I say, do we have an established fee
I have
structure?
one for
Yes.
Wyndham.
For
I have
indoor
one
and
for
outdoor.
Timberlane, Hampton School District.
Can I see ours?
Ours is electronic. I don't have a paper copy of it. I'm sorry.
I can show it to you, Rick, it's right, it's in.
Let me see if I have it, but I don't think I do, since it's online. I don't have a hard copy of it.
That's the wrong.
So ours is comparable.
Yeah.
With the others.
Yeah, absolutely.
And what is the current, this question more for Matt, I think.
In fact, I even looked up UNH's
Yep,
and theirs was actually cheaper than the high schools,
sure, yeah,
probably because they more
they
more
can,
federal and state
Yeah.
funding and they can
Yeah.
absorb it.
endowments, et cetera, yeah.
Yeah.
All right,
Scroll down, you'll see indoor and outdoor.
So Matt, what is our current agreement with the driver's ed? Because, and I'm saying this because this is the only for-profit organization that I know that's
Oh,
using
right,
our
I do have it here.
facilities for free.
I got it.
So what is our current agreement
sorry.
as it exists?
They signed that, but it says fees waived and the superintendent signed it.
Okay, and when was that signed?
It was signed, basically, was it September, Dan?
Well, he has to sign it every year. He
Right,
has-
no, but it's good September.
He does it from September
Yeah.
to September.
So my plan was to notify them this month, that we're changing, you know, and
Yeah, the
to
agreement
roll that
policy.
fee into the
Yep.
tuition.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, okay.
But that was always something that, you know, last year I asked about it, I was told to waive it.
Mhm.
So I waived it.
I reached out to Brian Stack about it, because I'm like, you know, how long has he been doing that here? And apparently the answer, like everything else, everybody assumes is forever.
Yeah.
And I think the way Brian put it is he thinks there used to be a contract, like a more formal agreement as opposed to just facilities use forms, but that wasn't necessarily renewed over time.
Mhm.
So that may be another way to look at this, is to use it as because there is some benefit to our kids, because some of our kids are taking driver's ed here. What I don't think we've what I don't think we've investigated in the last X number of years is what percentage of those kids in those classes are ours, and if there was 100% our kids, we can make an argument that, you know, waive it. You
Mhm.
could make that argument.
You could.
The kids are paying for driver's ed, correct?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and when I ran driver's ed at Timber Lane 15 years ago, it ran about $10,000 to $15,000 in the red every year. And the general idea was it was the vast majority of the kids taking it, like 90% were Timber Lane kids. It was a service to the communities, to our kids, and so they didn't worry about running that deficit. That's just one way of looking at it. I don't know what percentage of Rick's kids are, our kids are not. There's always kids hanging out in the hallway that I've never seen before in the afternoon going to driver's ed.
It doesn't really matter what the percentage is.
Yeah, I know,
'Cause
100% of them use our building.
The point is just, you could look at it that way, because I have seen it looked at it that way in a previous district. That's just one option.
Well, technically the policy's written, even if it's all of your kids, if it's a for-profit company, we still charge them.
Yeah.
But the only service he's providing that's to our kids is the convenience of having it here after school. He's not giving our students discounts
Right.
or anything like that.
Right.
Yep.
You know?
I think we agreed that we're gonna stick to our fee schedule.
Yes.
Sticking to the fee schedule, communication will be made. Yep.
It might be good to have a communication to all the groups that use, especially
Yeah.
Swayze.
Yeah.
For example.
Yep.
A new communication that goes out that asks them potentially to re-sign.
Yep.
Something with maybe some stronger language, you know, that building's getting beat on,
No, I know.
right?
Yep. Yep.
I just like looking at this, right? This document, the facility use.
Yeah.
So we need to come up with a way to make that not,
Yeah, it's the fine, that document's fine, but it's like 6 font, and it's like
Right.
fine print on a contract.
we have to find a way to make it.
Yeah.
Not, you know, a huge headache for our custodial staff.
Yep.
And from an expense standpoint for the district to operate these things.
Yep. Okay.
So maybe we can circle back on that in particular.
So are we all in agreement with that?
Yeah, I'm not even looking for a motion, it's just, you know, agreement that, you know, we're gonna actually adhere to the policy.
Yeah, I just think we want to be clear.
Yeah.
Here and to the public that is our intended, that we will follow the policy, we will follow our facilities use forms and our fee schedule.
Yeah, I think it'll go into this, this public accountant audit that they actually recommend that we stick to our policies as
Yep.
well. That's one of the things they pointed out, not specific to this, but
Yep.
we have
Overall.
policies in place for a reason.
So we don't have a user agreement, for example, like this.
All right, so with our 20
Okay.
minutes remaining,
Probably.
we still have questions about the fiscal audit, and then we still have Siemens.
Siemens is definitely, you know, did you see the Siemens presentation?
No.
Okay, yeah, so,
Can I just jump in for one
Yeah.
second? Because there is something important on that memorial list that he's gonna have to work on over the summer.
Sure.
That we do have that freezer as an A.
Yeah.
Yep.
At Memorial.
Okay.
And you know the problems we have with the Bakey freezer.
I do.
Shipping food, trucking and carting it back and forth.
Yep.
So I remembered that it took a while to get the unit,
Oh, yeah.
and I think that's something that if we're gonna do it, he's gonna start, because we're gonna have to, it's ideal to do it when school's not in service, right?
Yep.
Well, I've already got the bid from Alternative Sales, and I'll be honest with you, that's who did the one at Bakey,
Yeah.
and they were lower than everybody else.
Yeah.
I mean, so if we wanna just do a no bid type contract with Alternative Sales again and just roll, they're the same dimensions and same size and everything, you know, I don't know if you just wanna
They were
continue.
if I remember, they were substantially less expensive.
The problem is
Substantially.
I'm gonna go to Joe Warren.
Yep.
Who buys her stuff from Alternative Sales. Or I'm gonna go to GKS, who goes to Alternative Sales.
Yep.
Or I can just go to Alternative Sales and cut the middleman out
Yep.
and then contract them out personally to do the install.
Okay. That's a good call, Rick. Pulling that one up. So can we, do we want to make
I'll make a motion
Yep.
to action on getting the, is it Memorial?
walk-in freezer?
Walk-in freezer for
Freezer and
Memorial.
refrigerator.
And refrigerator through, in whatever way you see most expedient, Dan.
Okay,
And price
Alternative
effective.
Sales, price
Yep.
effective, yep.
I will get that rolling tomorrow.
Okay.
Oh, wait, we need a second.
Well, I'll amend it, because we're utilizing end of year funds to pay for that.
Yep.
As of right now.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And that could come out of facility use, revolving fund, once we know what the actual funds are in the next 30 years or so. Is that fair?
Yep.
So now you've
Absolutely.
amended it, that means it's your motion, so I second.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor? Unanimous? Okay.
Yep.
So Dan, are you good with that direction?
We're getting
Yeah,
a lot.
I'll get I'll get a final number
Okay.
from them and then a bid from the installer and I'll get it to you hopefully by the end of this
Oh.
month.
Thank you, sir.
We're gonna get that.
All right. Yeah, good call on that one. Do you want to cover anything for Siemens before we bring them back in, or do we want to do fiscal, the audit?
I think because of the timeliness of Siemens and the
Yep.
fact they came tonight
Mhm.
and also can clarify for the board what we're
Mhm.
looking to do, I think we should bring Siemens in now.
Okay. They're also meeting with the larger board though, correct?
Yeah, but I just want to make sure, like,
Okay.
there's nothing definitive we can vote on tonight.
Yep.
Because until we pick off our
Yep.
à la carte items.
Yep.
And we go and find out what things are specifically gonna cost, it's really, this is what you want to do,
Yep.
and then make a motion to, or authorize Chair Dutton to enter an agreement not to exceed a certain amount.
Yep.
For these items, and then we'll see where it's.
And where the funds are coming from.
And where it comes from.
And finance it. We have to be uber transparent.
Yes,
So
exactly.
we're in somewhat of a time crunch. So we thought we'd bring you back in.
Yeah.
You made the trip to be here. and,
Yeah.
We want to honor that. So
You got 30 seconds.
Okay.
Yeah.
for what?
no,
Ask us
45
questions.
before you
45
that.
seconds? Okay, we can do that.
Well, I mean, we're really here to answer questions, so
Yeah, we haven't started reviewing
Oh.
Siemens yet. We were talking about some end of year wants and needs with some end of year surplus. The fire alarm systems came up. but
Yeah.
We didn't, it was more of a discussion. So really, so I want to kind of summarize this fairly quickly for everyone, including the public, but, in May you came, you presented phase one. Phase one primarily focused on LED, providing, LED for all of our campuses, all of our buildings, which offers massive amount of savings over an 18-year term. That's what it was, right?
yeah, whatever,
Or
you will, when you
something
go
like
for
that.
financing.
Yeah.
But we used 18
Yeah.
years as a,
Right.
to give you
And that
some.
was the big chunk. And then there was some tightening up the building envelope, some insulating, some kind of no-brainer tightening up the building envelope. Not the super uber expensive stuff like replacing siding in this building, but,
Air sealing, we call it,
Yeah.
any gaps and cracks,
Yeah.
insulation, and stuff like that.
And then there were some issues with the memorial school suspended ceiling.
Yeah.
Some of that involved dropping the ceiling potentially and saving energy, but some of it was more fire related.
Yeah.
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 We're
Painted
bringing our
track.
ceilings back to code again.
It's painted, right?
Yeah.
They're a little
Yeah.
flammable right now.
And then, again, at the time of the auditing our systems, looking at everything comprehensively, we weren't sure what the end of the year was gonna look like. We potentially looked at, because the fire alarm system was a fairly high priority, rolling that into this project just to help with financing. So that's why the Memorial and Bakey fire alarm systems were rolled into your presentation in May. But as you said in the last meeting, and we've said, we can eliminate those things. If we say Memorial ceiling's fine, chop that off, you know?
Yep.
You know, we'll find another funding source for the fire
Or
alarm system,
Move
great.
it into phase two.
Yeah, we're moving to phase two. It's like whatever, it's what we're comfortable moving forward with. If that makes sense.
Did you get a chance to look through that breakdown of each of the buildings?
This one here, that's like
Yes.
6 font.
Mhm.
It looks good on my computer screen, so I hit print.
Yeah, the computer
Yeah.
screen's
Pretty
better.
straightforward.
Yeah, way better.
Yeah.
6 months.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I would add is that we gave Dan and Matt some options when it came to lighting. We wanted to really see where that ceiling was. We talked about doing new fixtures. Putting new fixtures everywhere would be the ceiling, which I mean is like the higher price point, right?
Mhm.
And then we pared it down. We worked together on, okay, we really want to prioritize new fixtures in the classrooms, and more lighting controls in the classrooms. So then we started looking at eliminating custodial closets and meeting rooms and things that like lower occupancy spaces to try to save money. And then, so that's the project that we came to you with, was all the classrooms, getting brand new fixtures, but then doing retrofits largely everywhere else, maintaining the look of your fixtures, but still getting the energy savings. So that's why there's a couple items crossed off in red, is kind of that ceiling I'm talking about, the all new fixtures, option 1. And then option 4 was what we whittled it down to. And then we just had a few feedback items, like, you know what, I'd really like ceiling occupancy sensors in the hallways. So that's why that price between option 4 and 5 kind of jumped a little bit. It's just those little tweaks we made
Okay.
since the last board meeting. We added some labor to address the existing lighting controls that are around this building, like the time clocks and the exterior. That was something that we discussed but didn't make it in, so we added that. So those are the little, I guess, details I would add to like why there are crossed out lighting options, is really just the work, the collaboration, I guess, we've been doing.
That's helpful.
Like putting
I was curious
photos
about that, so that's
on the
helpful.
parking lot
Yeah.
instead of
Yep.
timers or something.
Yeah, it was just the collaboration between like the 3 of us or the 4 of us. And then you see with the drop ceilings, we did the same thing. So there was an option to clean the grids versus replacing the grids. So option 2, the lower price, is, and I'm sorry, in my original
Memorial.
presentation, we had kind of labeled these as areas of the school. So if you're familiar with Memorial, it kind of jogs, and there's an addition that goes to the gym and cafeteria.
Yeah.
So that area, we can clean the grids there. It's the newest section of the building. So try to save some money there, as that's why that option was there. But if you want to replace all the grids,
Well,
That's-
replacing grid is very expensive to begin with because it's metal and it's a commodity and everything else,
the
so.
aluminum, yeah,
Yeah.
So is that option 1 is replacing all the grids?
all the grids, yep.
Okay.
Yes.
And then option 2 was cleaning area 4, was the only area that it made sense to clean versus replace. Area 1 is a brand new drop ceiling. It doesn't exist now. Area 2 is a really small hallway. It's probably only like 5 tiles by 4 tiles. That needs to be replaced. It's just very aged. And then area 3 is the long hallway. We have like a very mixed bag of fixtures. There are some that are mounted to the ceiling tiles and some that are recessed in. So to give it a very clean look, we want to replace the tiles and grids and drop it a little bit so there's room in the ceiling to recess the fixtures. You just need 4 inches. So that's why area 4 isn't really a contender for cleaning the grid.
One
So
of the things we discovered is that if you look at pictures of Memorial, you have recessed lighting and then you have drop lighting and then recessed lighting and then drop lighting. It just, it doesn't look uniform.
Oh, yeah.
So now's the time to take that one section where the drop lighting is and actually drop this grid 4 inches and just put recessed lighting in and make it nice and continuous down the hallway.
Yeah.
So it doesn't look like addition after addition after addition.
Yep.
It's more of a cosmetic thing, but we're gonna have to replace those light fixtures anyways. So it just makes sense to drop that grid 4 inches, put in recessed lighting, and we gotta put new tiles in anyways.
Agreed.
So,
Well, I'm just playing devil's advocate, right? Sorry.
no, go, that's good.
Is that
Sorry.
brick? No.
Yeah. I mean, you just said cosmetic, right? There's no operational savings, no cosmetic change. There's nothing listed on yours, right?
Yeah, no, we're not taking any savings.
So like, I get we have to change the lights
Over how many years?
for operational savings. But we don't have to change the
On the
grids,
taxpayers?
and we can just change tiles. and save
Right.
money on it.
Well, you would have to clean the grid,
Makes sense.
new tiles and new lighting regardless.
Okay.
So the additional thing we would spend money on that isn't cost saving would bring the grid down 4 inches.
That's my point.
Yes, absolutely.
It's like half of the hallway,
From the stairs all the way to the
Yeah.
mid of the hallway, everything is below the grid. So it would be just that section of dropping the ceiling 4 inches.
yeah,
Once you get into the third edition,
yeah, this 4 additions.
then the ceiling lights are recessed once again. And once again, we could just clean the grid, replace the lights and the ceiling tile.
We're only asking.
From that
The
point
difference of like $9,000 is what I'm saying?
Yeah, so it's just gonna say, so it's a $9,000 difference is what we're looking at for those two options.
See, option 2 is 64, and option 1 is 73.
The only difference between those two, they both include that 4-inch drop. I don't have an option in this spreadsheet without that 4-inch drop. I can do that, but I'd have to, email you guys tomorrow or something. It would be less than that.
Yeah, I think I'd like to, I think, again, look, I just want to make sure you understand, I appreciate all the work, and I'm not trying to create more work. This is the taxpayers' money. and
Yeah.
Yeah.
you need to see it.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I don't know if you guys talked about like not to exceed, that's really what it is, not necessarily landing on a dollar and cent number tonight.
Yeah.
So that option that you're just talking about is less than, the options I have here. So if you were to vote tonight to, empower these guys to finalize this,
Mhm.
we can do that. Like, we
We could lock in a project at an estimated cost without locking in the details and specifics of the project until we get the final quote.
exactly. Yeah, it's like so we call it not to exceed.
Yeah.
Like the proposal with, the grids being cleaned instead of replaced would not exceed this number.
Just so you guys can get moving.
Just so you don't have to wait till August to vote again, I think
Yeah.
is really
Yeah.
the crux of it. So
So-
it's not that I can't get you that information, it's just, I don't wanna hold up
Matt.
tonight.
This is gonna be a question for you too.
Appreciate it.
So between Matt and you two ladies, so when we go out there into the larger group, if the three of us on facilities are having this level of back and forth, and I'm sure this is frustrating for you because you do it all the time.
No.
So once we go out there in the broader group, there's gonna be even more questions,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
So how do we cut through all of that to get to the question that we're actually presenting to the full board tonight?
It's not.
Well, it also depends upon what the appetite is. Do you want everything rolled in, all 4 projects? And sorry, Mike and I was filling Mike in because he was,
I was here last.
if all 4 things are there, the total amount financed is in the $2 million range. But if you take out fire systems, and I didn't hear your
We've
conversation.
already
with
said
Sue.
we sort of want to take that out.
Okay.
And I believe
Yep.
So the fire system or the ceiling?
the fire systems.
Okay.
Because of the year-end money.
And what about the ceiling?
Yeah.
I missed that part of the conversation.
What do you mean the ceiling?
The ceilings will still be in.
Memorial.
That would still be in, that would be in the cap that we would then discuss later.
Yeah, you just wanna kinda
Right.
like
So,
Yeah.
cause,
change it up a little bit.
'cause that,
We're gonna have to take this
this,
total,
Yep.
subtract a couple things out.
Yep.
And make a motion to approve to a limit.
Yep.
And then with cutting those things out.
Yep.
the
It's
fire
like
systems are
255 or
255,
257,
yeah.
something like that.
What's that number?
The combined fire is like 255, so you would
Yep.
reduce that from the 2,098,300.
Yep.
And that would be the not to exceed.
Cause the thing that struck me in your last presentation was the
Yeah.
fact that the average annual out of pocket per se, because we're rolling the savings into the cost of the project. The average annual cost to the actual taxpayer is like, on average, $12,500.
Yeah.
But that includes the fire system.
Yeah.
Do you have any sense as to how much that would go down if I can't.
Yeah, I
that
can't put me on
program
the
in your
spot for
computer
that,
or-
but if you give
Put the
me a few
numbers in.
minutes, I
30
could.
seconds.
Yeah,
But
if we could.
so the
look that
question, I think I'm anticipating the biggest question you're gonna get in that room. It's I don't understand how $12,500 a year covers a $2.5 million project.
Cause it's
Black
the.
magic.
No, I understand now.
It's 118.
That's a great answer.
It's like when you buy a car.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, and that,
Funny money.
that pie chart you guys showed the last was
Yeah.
great. Like right now, you're spending this amount on electricity and one will have to be there.
Off
Plus,
saving, operational costs, like your guys, your
Right.
facility guys.
Yeah, operational cost, whatever. And then after the work, you're only spending that much on electricity.
Yeah.
And you take all that savings here, this money, and you roll it into
So-
your.
Well,
The next question you'll get.
Yeah.
Is gonna be, it might not even be a question, it might just be tentativeness around taking that money and allocating it toward this when it equals such a large sum over time
yeah.
without taxpayer approval.
Oh, that's for you guys. That's not really a question for me, I
No,
guess.
it's not a question. You know what I'm saying?
Well, this isn't being paid in a lump sum.
I know.
Yeah.
I'm just saying I'm anticipating that
Sure.
that's gonna be, no matter how you slice it, if it's a $2 million project, right?
Mhm.
That's still money that is being paid, even if we're paying it quote unquote out of savings. If we didn't, we could. You know what I mean?
Arguably, you would still be paying that money, it would just be going towards the utilities rather
It'd be going
than
toward the energy
project.
company, right?
Yeah.
So we have to make
Yeah.
clear that this is never money that could go back to taxpayers.
No.
Right.
This is
Yeah,
money
yeah,
that has to be spent on electricity.
Right.
Because if we don't, on energy, if we don't, it's gonna just be.
And as an
eaten up by
ROI,
energy.
we're eventually.
Right.
And the reason you're working in a performance contract with Siemens is that we guarantee the savings.
That's right.
So,
And that's when you jump in.
And
yeah,
that's when you jump in and
Yeah.
you say,
Love that.
this is the way to get all this stuff.
Yeah.
Without dinging the taxpayers.
And oh, by the
for-
way,
It's
we
nominal,
guarantee.
right? So I just think that needs to be spelled out really clearly.
Agreed.
And then ultimately,
We gotta head
am
out.
I asking
By 2
the
minutes.
board to make a motion potentially to authorize Chair Dutton to
Enter into.
enter into the agreement?
I would,
Or,
after it's been reviewed by,
Yeah, maybe, yeah. So, yeah, because I know there's gonna be, we'll set a cap tonight. There'll be some conversation back and forth
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
But the facilities committee needs to be
I just don't want
involved
to
there.
speak with them.
Right.
Like.
Because Dawn is gonna be like, I don't really know what we're talking about here. She's not involved in this, right?
Right.
So would it make more sense for either myself or Rick?
Dawn has to sign it as the chair,
Got it.
but she can sign it after we approve it,
Okay.
right?
That's perfect.
Right.
Yeah.
I think we have to review the final.
Yep.
The final, when we cut out a
Yeah.
couple things, and
Yeah.
you give us a quote,
yeah.
then we approve it, and then Dawn signs it.
Perfect. Okay.
So it's today more of a.
You guys have that pie chart slide?
I can bring it up, yeah.
It'll be.
I still
that's gonna-
think we can make
Be
a
the whole thing
motion
there.
to approve, to allocate.
Yep. We can set a
funds-
ceiling.
Funds not to exceed
Yep.
X, so we can
Yep.
engage in the project with Siemens.
Yep.
And we expect that we'll enter into that agreement before the next board meeting.
Yep.
Once the facilities member review the final proposal and approve it for the chair to sign.
Okay.
Good.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay.
We're gonna adjourn this.
Yes, what do we got here? 5:59, 1 minute to spare.
Nailed it.
We will adjourn the facilities